All right, this is from the August 2015 issue of the Grapevine. It's called Martinis in a Mayo Jar. This mom had a supersized craving and she didn't even like martinis. My girlfriend and I lived only a few doors away from each other. Our children played together. We shopped together. We were co-cadet Girl Scout leaders together. We drank together and we played naughty pranks, like the time we hung a just married sign on the back of a priest's car, may God forgive us. My girlfriend got the headache, I took the aspirin. You get the picture. We were almost connected at the hip. Her drinking progressed to the point where she was hospitalized several times. Although I drank probably as much as she did, I guess I was physically stronger. I wasn't hospitalized, didn't lose my job, didn't go to jails, didn't have automobile accidents. Well, there was that time I hit the bus from behind. It was parked. I didn't see it. I was in denial for a long time because I only drank beer, a lot of it, or anything else that was available. And I certainly was not as bad as my friend. So how could I possibly be an alcoholic? But soon my life began to crumble. I had fights with my husband, and the children no longer brought their friends home to play because they never knew what condition I'd be in. My friend's third trip to the hospital was on January 5th, 1973. I decided to call her as soon as I got home from work. But on the way home on this particular day, I had an incessant craving for a martini. This was strange because I hated martinis. I didn't like the way they made me feel, didn't even like the taste. Nevertheless, I stopped at the liquor store to get gin and vermouth, store brand, of course. And yes, I even bought the olives. I didn't have a decanter to mix my cocktails in. But a mayonnaise jar would do the trick. Sipping from a 12-ounce jar full of martinis, I placed the call to my hospitalized friend. We talked only for a few minutes because she told me some ladies from Alcoholics Anonymous had been to see her. She told me she realized she was an alcoholic and she intended to get help. Well, of course, I told her I thought she'd gone batty and quickly got off the phone. But then, even in my drunkenness, I thought, if she's an alcoholic, what does that make me? So I found a hotline number for alcoholism. I dialed it and spoke with a counselor. I told her of my own drinking habits and how my life seemed to be falling apart. I really expected her to tell me that I didn't have a problem and to thank me for calling her. Instead, she said it appeared I had a problem. However, I would have to determine that myself. She suggested I meet with her the following Monday. After I got off the phone with her, I cried out those three familiar words, God help me. Then I poured the remainder of the martinis down the drain and fell asleep on the couch. That was a difficult weekend. My husband worked nights, so our 16-year-old daughter helped me get through it. She nursed me through my jitters and took care of our little ones, ages 5 and 6. I spent a lot of time in a hot bathtub. It was the only thing that would calm my jitters while thinking all the while that I'd never have any fun again. As if the last few years of my drinking had been any fun at all. I remember screaming out loud, "My life's over. I can never drink again." Then suddenly I heard a voice that said, "Donna, your life is just beginning. You don't have to drink." On Monday, 72 hours later, I was feeling a little better. I almost talked myself out of keeping my appointment with the counselor. But something pushed me on, and at noon I sat before her in her office. After a little chat, she asked me, "Donna, do you think you're an alcoholic?" I quickly retorted with, "Goodness no, I'm not as bad as that." I'd always thought alcoholics were Skid Row people. I had seen movies about them. The counselor asked me to keep an open mind and enlighten me on how alcoholism has no respect for age or occupation. She then suggested that I go to an AA meeting. I attended my first meeting that evening. I was nervous as I entered the room, but people offered me a cup of coffee. I was grateful it was only half full. How did they know I was new? As I looked around the room, I saw people talking and laughing. They appeared to be comfortable in their own skin. For the first time in my life, I felt I was home. It was suggested that I identify and not compare. I listened to the speaker share her experience, strength, and hope. I was so surprised that someone else had those feelings of being less than and drank to cover them up. She drank to have fun. She drank to forget. She drank when she was sad. She drank when she was angry. She drank for no reason at all. Wow, me too. When the meeting was over, I made a dash for the door. Before I could make my escape, I felt a tap on my shoulder. A woman named June introduced herself and told me a little of her own story. When she saw that I was still a bit shaky, she suggested that a glass of orange juice with a teaspoon of honey would help to temporarily satisfy my craving for alcohol. She also suggested that I call her when I got home from work the next day. For the next 90 days, I took the direct route home from work instead of driving by the liquor store. My teenage daughter met me at the back door with the orange juice concoction in one hand and the phone in the other. June and I talked on the phone every day, and she picked me up for a meeting almost every night. I made many friends, didn't drink, and went to meetings, but that's all I did. It wasn't long before I began the newcomer's cry, "Is that all there is?" June saw that some of my fog had lifted, so she told me to meet her at her house on Saturday at 2 p.m. She said, "Bring your big book, a notebook, and a dictionary, and don't be late." Then she hung up. And so we began. Every Saturday afternoon, June and I met and went through the big book. We read slowly and talked and shared. With June's help, I came to know my higher power. I was finally able to clear the wreckage of my past, and I became free. What could I ever do to thank her? June had told me at the very beginning that the only requirement was that I pass it on. We continued to work together and attended meetings. Many years later, June and her family moved to Europe. I felt that I'd lost my best friend. Now I was faced with having to find a new sponsor. I put very little effort into it. I thought no one could come up to my standards, so I sponsored myself. I may not have picked up a drink, but there's no doubt I was in danger of relapse. I sponsored a few ladies, but they didn't stay with me for very long. I had nothing to offer them. They were on to me. They could see that I was talking the talk, but not walking the walk. I occupied a seat in AA with my double-digit years and thought I was really something. I was so arrogant. I spoke about working a program of recovery, but I didn't live it. I spoke of God, but I didn't pray. Everything that came out of my mouth was pure nonsense. I preferred discussion meetings so I could share my, quote, wisdom. The only thing I did right during this time was not drink. This is why I refer to it as my period of sobriety. I was 25 years dry when I moved to San Antonio, Texas, and I carried my egomaniacal sick habits with me. That's when I met Maria. She was not impressed with me. She was quiet and didn't speak often, but when she did, she had a powerful message. I got her phone number and told her many times I was going to call her. She would always reply, "When you're ready, you'll call me." One day I was finally so soul sick that I called. She told me, "Meet me on Saturday at 2 p.m. Bring your big book, a notebook, and a dictionary, and don't be late." That sounded familiar. And so we began reading the big book as June and I had before. She pointed out important words such as honest, thorough, clear-cut directions, no middle-of-the-road solution. I asked questions and looked up words I didn't understand. Once again, I found my God and realized he had never left me. He had been embracing me all along. That answered my biggest question to her, which was, how is it that I've gone all these years and didn't get drunk? Maria then reminded me about her only requirement. I must pass it on. I've been blessed with 40 plus years of sobriety now, and I'm still going strong. I have a great home group today, and I'm actively involved in service. I've found that you're never too old for service. I must pass it on. I used to drink martinis out of mayonnaise jars. Now I'm helping others. It's a beautiful thing, this gift I've been given, to see other alcoholics come into the sunlight of the Spirit. Donna M., Port St. Lucie, Florida.